Good afternoon. Welcome to the seventh session of our Energy Systems Engineering Master's webinar series. Today, we delve into a topic of increasing global importance and relevance, renewable energy in Uruguay. This seminar, presented by Ms. Virginia Echinope, offers us a comprehensive look at Uruguay's energy sector transformation over the past decade. Her exploration goes beyond mere statistics and infrastructural change, but how Uruguay, who was a heavy energy importer, reshaped its identity to become a beacon of renewable energy innovation. Ms. Echinope's insights guides us through the country's journey, highlighting not only its achievements, but also the strategic decisions and policies that place Uruguay's energy sector at the forefront of renewable adoption. Now let's pivot. Alex, I'm eager to hear your perspective on Uruguay's transition from reliance on imported coal to establishing a robust foundation in renewable energy.
Of course, Joby. I'd be more than happy to. To understand Uruguay's energy transition, we first need to look at the country and its place in Latin America. Uruguay is a small, developed country with only 3.5 million inhabitants. It ranks first among other Latin American countries in its democracy index, low corruption, civil liberties, rule of law, social mobility, and government index. Overall, it sounds like Uruguay is a well-oiled, efficient machine and a great candidate to be able to make an energy transition. Speaking of its energy, the country is 98% electrified, so their grid is fully developed. They consume 11.2 terawatt hours annually. To put more context behind that number, we'll compare Uruguay to South Dakota. Uruguay is 68,000 square miles, while South Dakota is 77,000 square miles. South Dakota's population is 2.6 million fewer, but consumes slightly more energy at 11.7 terawatt hours annually compared to 11.2. Both South Dakota and Uruguay are heavy agricultural exporters. Having agriculture as your dominant industry is important when you consider how much energy you're going to consume. After all, agriculture is significantly less energy intensive than manufacturing and heavy industry. Additionally, Uruguay has a low population density relative to its neighbors. This is important when building out land-intensive renewables like solar. But by far, the most important factors contributing to Uruguay's success in its energy transition are economic incentives and geography. Uruguay does not have any fossil fuel resources. This means that they have to import all oil, natural gas, and coal to generate electricity. Imports are market-driven and vulnerable to supply chain disruptions. Any country that relies on fuel imports is significantly more vulnerable to price shocks and grid instability. For Uruguay, the transition to become green was not just good for the planet, it was in the best interest of national and economic security. On top of this, Uruguay is blessed with hydroelectric power. The country currently supplies between 50 to 70% of its electric generation through hydropower, depending on rainfall and their electric demand that year. Now, this reliable baseload power started Uruguay off on a strong start to move to a clean grid. With a solid base in hydro, Uruguay could focus on building out its wind, biomass, and solar fleet, all of which were able to bring the cost of electricity down for the country. Today, Uruguay has turned its electric grid from a GDP sink into a GDP booster. They still import fossil fuels, but are a net exporter of electricity. Furthermore, local developers have gained the economic benefits of green development. If this scenario sounds familiar, you may have been paying attention to New York's energy transition. This state is similar to Uruguay in the sense that they do not have fossil or coal resources. It does, however, have hydro. As a result, we've seen New York and California lead the charge towards greening America's grid. In any case where a government is importing its electricity or resources, it's better for the environment and for the local industries if they can generate those resources in-house. Back to you, Joby.
Thank you, Alex. Your insight into Uruguay's energy landscape paints a vivid picture of a nation that has strategically leveraged its natural and socioeconomic assets to transition towards renewable energy. I thought your comparison with South Dakota in terms of energy consumption and agriculture output, alongside Uruguay's lack of fossil fuel resources, underscores the country's push for energy independence and sustainability. This shift, driven by a combination of necessity and foresight, has not only safeguarded Uruguay's energy future, but also transformed its grid into a contributor to the nation's GDP. The parallels drawn with New York's energy transition further illustrate the global relevance of Uruguay's journey. Building on this foundation, let's turn our attention to a pivotal moment in Uruguay's renewable energy journey. Jessica, in 2008, Uruguay embarked on a significant chapter in its energy story by implementing a new energy policy. This decision marked a key turning point in the nation's approach to energy. Could you elaborate on how this focus on implementing renewable energy sources has transformed Uruguay's energy sector since then?
Sure, Joby. Energy policy has been a primary force in Uruguay's shift to renewable energy. As you mentioned, in 2008, a new energy policy was approved, paving the way for change, which incentivized renewable development. Following this policy, developers began building new energy infrastructure, including wind, solar, and additional hydropower. And after roughly 10 years of energy development, in 2022, the state policy was again updated. And this update looked at energy from many perspectives, including technology, economics, environmental, ethical, and social issues. So when looking at energy supply, the goal of diversifying the energy mix was set in this update. So this led to a reduction in oil imports and an increase in the use of domestic resources. It promoted non-traditional renewable energy technologies, building local capacity instead of huge power plants that weren't centered around populations, and it also prioritized maintaining a low carbon footprint. So, looking at energy demand in this update, the goal was set to promote energy efficiency for the public and across all energy industries and industrial sectors. So, this encouraged energy users to think more responsibly about how much energy they were using and when they were using that energy. And that culture instilled is still at play today. Socially, this adaptation also sought to make clean energy and reliable electricity, especially, accessible to all citizens, and they viewed this as a human right through this new policy update. So, to talk more about what the renewable energy mix and energy in general looks like in Uruguay today, hydropower ranks first for installed renewable resources with roughly 1,500 megawatts or 1.5 gigawatts of installed capacity. Since the early 2000s, hydro resources in Uruguay have been almost entirely developed. Similarly, with little to no future development planned is fossil fuel infrastructure and energy produced by fossil fuels. This type of energy has a capacity of almost 1,100 megawatts or 1.1 gigawatts. So this non-renewable generation is almost entirely split between gas turbines and coal combustion technologies. Wind energy ranks next in terms of installed capacity, coming from nearly zero installed megawatts in 2007 to roughly 1,500 megawatts or 1.5 gigawatts of capacity today. This makes up around a third of the country's capacity, so there's been a substantial amount of growth since that 2008 policy passing to today in the wind energy sector specifically. Biomass energy generation makes up roughly 700 megawatts of installed capacity, and this is across 10 different operating plants, which run primarily on wood as the fuel source. These, however, are not interconnected with the electricity grid, and so they're not used for electricity generation for people in their homes. Most of the biomass infrastructure in Uruguay is paired directly with industrial processes, but there are a few small plants that do feed directly into the grid, and these larger plants that are connected with industrial processes can feed their overgeneration back into the grid. So there's still a bit of biomass energy that's transformed into electricity on the grid. Solar generation is where Uruguay is lacking, with just over 200 megawatts of installed capacity. And for a country with favorable weather and solar irradiance, this is an area where improvements can definitely be made. But Mike will talk more about other areas, including this one, where Uruguay can improve.
Thank you, Jessica, for the insightful overview of Uruguay's renewable energy landscape. I think it's commendable how the country has embraced a forward-thinking approach to energy by balancing technological advancement with environmental stewardship. Now, shifting focus to the road ahead, let's explore the current challenges and future energy objectives that Uruguay aims to address. Michael, could you shed some light on these aspects?
Sure thing, Joby. Even with the dramatic increase in renewable energy over the past 2 decades, the industry still faces some current and future challenges. Uruguay still needs to import oil for other non-electric generation reasons. In 2022, Uruguay had to import 37% of its energy in the form of oil, with the transportation industry consuming 69% of the oil imports. This is very similar to what we see here in the United States, where the transportation sector accounted for 66.6% of petroleum consumption in 2022. Even with Uruguay's fantastic deployment of renewable energy systems, they are still looking to improve their renewable energy matrix. They're looking to optimize their renewable portfolio with complementary renewable energy systems to make up for the intermittencies of solar and wind power. One way they can make up for the intermittencies is by improving the management of energy demand and energy storage techniques. Uruguay has a great combined resource between wind and solar. These sources typically have a combined capacity factor of around 60%. The high capacity factor allows for the Uruguayan electric system to produce a projected 20% surplus energy by 2034. Uruguay is currently looking for the best way to utilize this surplus in electricity as they focus on their second energy transition. Uruguay's electric sector is key as they begin to focus on their next energy transition. They're looking to increase the electric supply for electromobility by utilizing electric public transportation and personal and utility electric vehicles. As they try to increase electromobility, they are incentivizing the use of electric vehicles by reducing some specific taxes on citizens who purchase EVs. Through these incentives, they found that investing in an EV is profitable after 5 years of ownership. They additionally have subsides to cover the cost difference between investing in an electric bus over a traditional diesel-powered bus. And to ensure that EVs can recharge, Uruguay is looking to install charging stations every 50 kilometers on public routes. In addition to increasing electromobility, Uruguay is looking to increase the development of services and products for the demanding green energy market of the industrial sector, and create a regional market for the energy transactions. Finally, they're also looking to generate additional energy for the creation of a green hydrogen market.
Thank you, Michael. I like how you highlighted the need for Uruguay to continue diversifying its energy sources by investing in energy demand management and storage solutions to address the intermittency of renewable energy. I also agree that Uruguay's initiative to promote electric mobility is a significant step for their second energy transition. Shifting to Mohammed, it's intriguing to see Uruguay's exploration of hydrogen as an alternative clean energy source. Hydrogen's potential in contributing to a greener future could be game-changing. With that in mind, what are your thoughts on the use of hydrogen as an alternative clean energy source?
Hydrogen is like a clean and flexible energy tool. It helps store and move energy around, especially from things like the sun and wind. We can make it different way, like using clean energy or capturing the pollution. It's useful for cleaning up industry, making cars go without pollution, and giving power to homes. Even so, it can be a bit costly now. Scientists are working on making it better, and countries are teaming up to use it more for green energy future. And because Uruguay has an excellent solar and wind combination, they can produce green energy, green hydrogen from the grid, because they have around 98% electric energy from renewable. The primary studies showed that Uruguay would have a competitive cost for green hydrogen, which is about $1.4 per kilogram hydrogen. They also could export the excess of hydrogen generated, and it's simultaneous with the plan of expanding the offshore wind. Besides that, the main idea for development of hydrogen in Uruguay is to start with domestic development, long-distance transportation, and focused on synthetic fuel and green fertilizers.
Thank you, Mohammed, for elucidating the significant role of hydrogen as a versatile and clean energy source. Uruguay's utilization of its renewable energy resources for green hydrogen production not only aligns with its sustainability goals, but also positions Uruguay to become a potential leader in the global green hydrogen market. The focus on domestic development, and the strategic use in transportation, synthetic fuels, and green fertilizers indicate a well-rounded approach towards a sustainable future. In conclusion, Uruguay's journey in the realm of renewable energy, marked by significant strides in wind, solar, and now hydrogen, reflects a commendable commitment to sustainable development. This transition from a coal-dependent importer to a renewable energy pioneer showcases the possibilities for small countries to make substantial impacts on a global scale. Uruguay's efforts in optimizing its energy mix, enhancing energy efficiency, and promoting electric mobility highlight the importance of a holistic approach to energy transformation. The country's exploration of green hydrogen as a future energy source is particularly promising, symbolizing a forward-thinking approach to energy challenges. Uruguay's progress serves as an inspiring model for other nations, proving that with political will, innovation, and strategic planning, a sustainable energy future is within reach.